My Mate is the Alpha I Was Born to Hate, a werewolf romance audiobook. The night smelled of rain and secrets. Silver Cross had a way of holding its breath after sundown. It was the kind of mountain town where shadows seemed thicker, where silence pressed against your skin like damp fog, and where everyone pretended not to notice the things lurking beyond the edge of the lamplight. I'd only been here for 3 weeks, but even in that short time, I'd learned one thing: the people of Silver Cross lived by one unspoken rule: stay out of the woods after dark. I wasn't good at following rules. The old sign nailed to the crooked post stood at the mouth of the forest like a final warning: do not enter after sunset. Violators will not be searched for. Most people would have turned back. I stepped forward. The ground beneath me was soft, damp from the earlier rain, and the air carried the sharp, resinous scent of pine needles. My boots sank slightly with each step as I followed the faint trail into the trees, the canopy swallowing what little light was left in the sky. I told myself I was here to clear my head, to outrun the storm inside me that never seemed to settle. But the truth was, I'd been restless since the day I arrived. No matter how many nights I closed my windows and locked my doors, I couldn't shake the feeling that Silver Cross was watching me. My chest tightened as I glanced up at the canopy, where jagged silhouettes of branches clawed at a bruised purple sky. The moon was hidden behind a thick blanket of clouds, leaving the forest in shades of black and gray. The wind carried faint whispers through the trees, bending them with a low groan that almost sounded alive. That's when I heard it, a soft, deliberate crunch of leaves. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. At first, I thought it might be an animal, a deer, maybe, or a fox. But then came the second sound, heavier this time, too heavy, like something large moving slowly. Stalking, the hairs on the back of my neck rose. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the dark spaces between the trees, but everything was still, too still. Even the crickets had gone silent. My heart started to race. It's nothing, I told myself, just my imagination, just nerves. But the forest disagreed. A deep, low growl rippled through the shadows, primal, vibrating in my bones like the earth itself was warning me to run. My body locked in place, and then I saw them. Two faintly glowing amber eyes stared back at me from the darkness. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but then the shape stepped forward into the dim light seeping through the trees. It was a wolf, or at least, it looked like one, massive, nearly twice the size of any wolf I'd ever seen in documentaries or books. Its thick black fur glimmered faintly with moisture, and its shoulders rippled with quiet strength. Its head was lowered, but its gaze never wavered, locked on me with unnerving intensity. My lungs forgot how to breathe. The wolf didn't move. Neither did I. For a suspended, suffocating moment, we just stared at each other, two creatures sharing a silence older than words. Something about its presence felt wrong, unnatural, but not because it was threatening me, because it wasn't. Somehow, I knew it could have ended me in an instant if it wanted to, but it didn't. Instead, its ears twitched, its gaze searching my face like it was trying to read me. Then, everything changed. A chilling, drawn-out howl echoed from somewhere deeper in the woods, splitting the silence like a blade. The black wolf's ears shot up, and for the first time, it looked away from me toward the source of the sound. Before I could even process what was happening, the wolf lunged past me, its massive body brushing the cold air around me as it vanished into the shadows. I staggered back, pressing against the rough bark of a tree, my heart pounding so violently it hurt. The sounds that followed were chaos: snarls, teeth snapping, claws tearing into flesh. I caught flashes of movement through the trees, two shapes locked in a brutal fight, one as black as shadow, the other mottled gray and silver, their bodies crashing into the earth with terrifying force. The forest erupted around them, branches breaking, leaves scattering like startled birds. I knew I should have run. Every survival instinct in me screamed at me to turn around, to get out, to leave this madness behind, but I couldn't move. I stood there, trembling, helpless, watching the darkness tear itself apart. And then, silence, a sharp, ringing silence, broken only by the sound of my ragged breathing. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, as I scanned the shadows, and then I saw him, not the wolf, a man. He stepped out from the darkness like the night itself had shaped him. Tall, broad-shouldered, his black shirt clung to a body built like stone, damp from the mist and streaked with dirt and blood. His dark hair was tousled, sticking to his sharp jaw, and his presence was overwhelming. but it was his eyes that stole the air from my lungs, the same amber glow I'd seen moments ago. I stumbled back instinctively, gripping the tree behind me for balance. My voice was barely a whisper. "What are you?" He didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, his chest rising and falling in measured, controlled breaths, his jaw tight like he was holding back words. Then, finally, his voice came low, deep, rough like gravel sliding over stone. "You weren't supposed to see me." My breath caught. His gaze softened, not kind, not gentle, but conflicted. Like part of him wanted to step forward and part of him wanted to disappear entirely. "You need to leave," he said firmly, his voice carrying an edge that sent a shiver through me. Now, my mind screamed at me to move, to listen, to run, but I couldn't. Something about him, about the wild danger clinging to his skin, about the way his presence filled the space around him, held me in place. Finally, he stepped closer, his boots crunching softly over wet earth, stopping just a few feet away. My chest tightened under his gaze, and for the first time since I'd arrived in Silver Cross, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Fate, though I didn't understand why. I knew this wasn't the end. Something had started tonight, something I couldn't walk away from. I didn't remember walking back to my cabin. One moment, I was frozen at the edge of the forest, locked in the unyielding stare of the man with the amber eyes, the man who wasn't fully human, and the next, I was inside, slamming my door shut so hard the frame rattled. I locked it once, twice, a third time. My chest rose and fell too fast, breaths ragged, shallow. The silence inside the cabin pressed against me like a living thing. I slid down the door until I hit the floor, pulling my knees up, trying to convince myself that I'd imagined it, the fight, the monstrous shadows tearing into one another, his claws, his impossible strength. But the more I tried to bury the memory, the sharper it became, each detail burning itself into my mind. I sat there for hours, unmoving, while the forest outside whispered and groaned. My cabin was old. Its wooden bones creaked with every shift of wind, and each sound made me flinch. Shadows moved along the walls. Every instinct screamed at me to leave Silver Cross, to pack up, drive away, and never look back. And yet, I didn't move, because beneath the fear, buried so deep I almost hated myself for it, was something else, curiosity. Something about him, about what I'd seen, held me in its grip. His power, his silence, his warning, and the way his eyes seemed to burn when they met mine, like an unspoken tether had snapped into place the second we saw each other. I told myself I didn't believe in fate, but last night, for the first time, I wondered if fate believed in me. The morning came gray and damp, heavy clouds stretching low over the mountains. I stood by the window, arms wrapped tightly around myself, watching the mist crawl between the trees. The forest looked peaceful now, its secrets carefully hidden under layers of fog, but I knew better. Nothing about this town was peaceful. Still, I forced myself to leave the cabin, to pretend things were normal. I needed food. I needed answers. Maybe, if I blended in, I'd convince myself that last night hadn't happened. Silver Cross's main street looked deceptively ordinary. Brick buildings lined narrow cobblestone paths. A single coffee shop filled the air with the warm, bitter scent of roasted beans. Locals murmured softly as they passed one another, trading quick smiles and polite nods. No one acted like a monster had prowled the woods only hours ago. I almost convinced myself I was losing my mind. Almost. And then I saw him. He was leaning against a black pickup truck at the far end of the street, his posture lazy but alert, like a predator pretending to rest while keeping its prey in sight. Black t-shirt, dark jeans, shoulders broad, arms folded across his chest. Even in daylight, he didn't look real. Something about him, the sharp angles of his jaw, the coiled tension in his stance, the quiet danger in his stillness, made everyone else around him seem faded, like they belonged to a different world entirely. And maybe they did. I froze in place, every nerve in my body sparking like a live wire. He noticed me instantly, of course. He did, his gaze cutting across the distance and locking onto mine like a hook buried deep beneath my ribs. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then he pushed off the truck and started walking toward me. Each step was slow, deliberate, measured, like he was giving me time to run, or daring me to try. I couldn't move. When he stopped just a few feet away, I had to tilt my head back to meet his gaze. Up close, he was even more overwhelming. His presence filled the space between us, heavy, magnetic, impossible to ignore. "You shouldn't be here," His voice was low, rough, almost a growl rumbling beneath the words. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice steady. I live here. His eyes flickered with something sharp frustration, maybe, but his expression stayed unreadable. Not here, he said, glancing toward the forest behind me, his jaw tightening like stone. Not this close to the woods. Not in this town. You're too close to things you don't understand. Anger rose in my chest, sharp enough to slice through the fear. Then explain it, I snapped. What the hell happened last night? What are you? For the briefest second, I swore I saw something shift behind his eyes, hesitation, maybe, even regret. But then his face hardened again, every muscle in his body going tense, controlled. You don't want that answer, he said finally, his voice like steel wrapped in smoke. And if you want to stay alive, you'll stop asking questions. He started to turn away, and something inside me panicked. Wait. Before I realized what I was doing, I reached out and grabbed his wrist. The second my skin touched his, everything changed. A jolt shot through me, raw and electric, like fire spreading through every nerve, ending at once. My breath caught in my throat, and his did too. We froze, neither of us daring to move, locked in that strange, shattering moment. Slowly, his amber eyes lowered to where my hand rested against his skin. When he looked back up at me, they weren't just amber anymore. They were glowing faintly, like sunlight captured in molten gold. You feel it too, I whispered, voice shaking despite myself. His jaw clenched, muscles working like he was fighting some invisible battle inside himself. It doesn't matter what I feel, he said hoarsely, low and rough, almost like he hated admitting it. Fate doesn't care about what we want. It never has. I frowned, confusion tightening my chest. Fate? He stepped closer, close enough that the warmth of his body rolled over me, close enough that the pine and smoke scent of him tangled with my breath. When he spoke again, his voice was even softer, quieter, but edged with something darker. You have no idea what you've walked into, he murmured, almost like a warning. And if you're smart, you'll walk away. Before it's too late. I wanted to ask him what he meant. I wanted to demand the truth, but before I could say another word, he was gone. One heartbeat, his presence towered over me. The next, he'd vanished, melting into the mist curling off the mountains, swallowed by the quiet gray of the town. As if he'd never been there at all. I stood there for a long time, frozen, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I should have left. I should have run. I should have listened to his warning. But the strangest, most dangerous part of all was, I knew I wouldn't, because whatever he was, whatever danger I'd stumbled into, I wasn't walking away. I woke the next morning with the taste of copper on my tongue and the memory of his voice lingering in my dreams. The storm had passed, leaving Silver Cross drenched in mist and silence. The woods beyond my cabin looked like they were holding secrets again, draped in fog so thick it blurred the edges of reality. For a moment, I almost convinced myself that last night was a hallucination, the wolves, the attack, the man with the eyes like molten amber. But the bruises on my arms told a different story. I traced my fingers over them absently as I sat on the edge of my bed. I hadn't told anyone. Not about the fight. Not about the things I'd seen. How could I? I barely understood it myself. And yet, deep down, something inside me whispered that my life had already shifted, like the earth beneath my feet had cracked open and swallowed me into a world I didn't choose. I made myself tea just to keep my hands busy, watching the steam curl upward in the quiet cabin. But even in silence, I felt it, the sensation of being watched. Every instinct screamed at me to stay away from the forest. So of course, that's exactly where I went. The trail was still damp from the storm, leaves glistening with droplets like tiny crystals. The deeper I walked, the colder the air became, carrying a strange, electric heaviness, like the forest itself was aware of me. I wasn't sure why I came back here. Maybe I wanted answers. Maybe I just wanted to prove to myself that last night hadn't been real. That's when I saw him. He leaned against a massive oak at the edge of the clearing, dressed in dark jeans and a black shirt that clung to his broad shoulders. His arms were folded, his head slightly lowered, but when he looked up at me, when those piercing amber eyes locked on mine, it was like the entire world narrowed into a single breath. You shouldn't be here, he said, his voice deep and low, laced with something I couldn't name. You, I hesitated, gripping the strap of my bag tighter. You were there last night. You saved me. I shouldn't have. His jaw tightened. Go home. The command in his tone should have sent me running. But instead, it rooted me in place. You owe me an explanation, I said, surprising even myself with the steadiness in my voice. What are you? His silence stretched between us, heavy and charged. Then slowly, he stepped forward, each movement deliberate and controlled, as though he was holding back an untamed storm inside him. You don't want the truth, he said finally. Trust me, try me, I whispered. Something flickered in his expression, then pain, longing, and something far darker. But before he could answer, a low growl rolled through the clearing, not from him, from behind us. I spun around, heart hammering as shadows shifted between the trees. A figure emerged, massive, broad, and moving on all fours. Not quite wolf, not quite man. My throat went dry. It bared its teeth, glowing silver in the fractured sunlight, and let out a sound that made my bones vibrate. The man in front of me, my unexpected savior, stepped into my path instantly, shielding me with his body. Stay behind me, he ordered, voice dropping into a feral growl that didn't sound entirely human anymore. I stumbled back, but I couldn't look away. His posture shifted, his muscles tightening beneath his shirt, and for a split second, I swore I saw his pupils narrow into slits. The other creature lunged out in one fluid, brutal motion. He moved faster than my eyes could follow. The sound of tearing fabric and snapping bones filled the clearing as his body shifted mid-strike, his arms elongating, claws ripping through skin, his face reshaping into something half-wolf, half-nightmare. It was him, the wolf, the one from last night. The fight was chaos, snarls, claws, flashes of silver fur and crimson blood. The rogue wolf fought viciously, but he was faster, stronger, angrier. When it was over, the intruder's body collapsed against the earth, motionless, swallowed by the shadows of the trees. I stood frozen, unable to breathe. Slowly, he turned back to me, his chest heaving, his claws dripping red. His wolf eyes burned brighter than the sun itself, and for a single heartbeat, I thought he would attack me too. Then, in a blink, the claws retracted. His body twisted violently, bones realigning with sickening cracks until he stood before me again, not wolf, not monster, but man, except no part of him felt human anymore. You, my voice broke as I took a step back. You're one of them. His jaw clenched. Say it, a wolf. He didn't deny it. I shook my head, my chest tight and my vision blurring with panic. This isn't real. It can't be real. It's real, he said sharply, his voice cutting through the fog of my fear. And now you know too much. I froze. What does that mean? It means, he said, stepping closer, his voice low and dangerous, that you've just stepped into a world you can't walk away from. Something in his tone chilled me more than the cold air ever could. But before I could ask anything else, he was gone, vanishing into the shadows between the trees as though he had never been there at all. I stood in the clearing, heart pounding, surrounded by silence, and for the first time, I realized I was no longer afraid of the forest itself. I was afraid of him, and yet, deep down, a darker truth unsettled me far more than fear ever could, because beneath the terror, beneath the confusion, beneath the chaos, I wanted to see him again. The days after the encounter in the woods passed like a fever dream, slow and heavy, yet humming beneath the surface with a strange, unshakable tension. I couldn't stop thinking about him, the stranger with the amber eyes. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them again, glowing faintly in the darkness of the forest like embers barely contained by flesh. He was powerful, terrifying, yet something about the memory pulled at me like a hidden thread I couldn't untangle. I told myself to forget, to stay away from the woods, to keep my head down and survive the way I always had. But something inside me had shifted that night. And Silver Cross felt different too. The town had always been quiet, like a place living under an unspoken truce. But now there was an edge to everything. You could feel it. The wind carried a strange charge, sharp and restless. Even the birds seemed to have abandoned the skies, as though nature itself was holding its breath. At night, I'd hear things I couldn't explain. Low growls somewhere beyond the tree line, snapping branches where there should have been silence, and sometimes, whispers. Not quite words, but sounds like breaths moving through the darkness, always just far enough away to make me question if I'd imagined them. And the moon, the closer it came to full, the heavier the air became, as though gravity itself had shifted. The pale silver light sliced through the night like blades, cutting across the mountains and painting the forest in a haunting glow. I didn't understand why, but I felt drawn to it. Every instinct screamed danger, but some buried part of me recognized it like my blood knew something I did. And single quotes T.by noon one day, restless and suffocated by the cabin walls, I forced myself into town. Silver Cross Square was alive with motion, the usual Saturday bustle of market stalls, the smell of wood smoke curling into the air, voices murmuring over freshly baked bread and wildflower bouquets. Yet beneath it all, I sensed unease in the way people moved, their gazes shifting toward the shadowed edges of the forest when they thought no one was watching. That's when I saw her. She stood by the apothecary window, tall and impossibly still, with a cascade of long silver hair that gleamed faintly even under the muted sun. Her sharp green eyes found mine instantly, locking on with such unsettling precision that I stopped mid-step, as though an invisible hand had wrapped around my throat. I don't know why I approached her. "Can I help you?" I asked, though it sounded more defensive than polite. The corners of her lips curved faintly, though it wasn't warmth, it was recognition. "You shouldn't have gone into the woods that night," she said softly, but there was no kindness in her voice. It landed like a blade, clean and cold, slicing through any pretense of normalcy. My breath caught. I don't know what you mean." She tilted her head, studying me the way a hawk studies its prey. "Lying won't keep you safe, little one." I stiffened, every muscle locking tight. "Who are you?" The woman stepped closer, and I caught the faintest scent of something sharp and metallic, iron, maybe, or old blood. Her voice was velvet over steel when she spoke again. "Someone who still remembers the old ways," she murmured. "The balance that keeps this town alive. And you?" Her gaze darkened, almost pitying. "You've stepped into the current of something far older than Silver Cross itself." My throat went dry. "I don't understand." "You will." Before I could say anything else, her eyes flicked sharply past me, toward the distant tree line. Her body tensed, as if she heard something I couldn't. Then she leaned in close enough that her breath ghosted across my ear. "They're watching you," she whispered, so low it was almost lost beneath the hum of the crowd. When I turned back, she was gone. I returned to the cabin long before dusk, locking the door twice and drawing every curtain tight. But safety is an illusion when shadows know your name. That night, the silence pressed too heavily against the walls. I curled into the corner of the couch, arms wrapped around my knees, listening for anything, everything. Then came the knock, 3 slow, deliberate raps against the wood. I froze, breath caught in my throat, my heart hammering against my ribs so violently it hurt. I waited, willing it to be my imagination, willing whoever or whatever was out there to leave. The knock came again, louder, harder, and then a voice, deep, low, rough as gravel. "Open the door, little human." My blood turned to ice. I knew that voice, amber eyes. I stumbled toward the window, but when I peeked out, there was no one there. The porch lay empty, shadows stretching long under the pale silver wash of the almost full moon. Somewhere beyond the tree line, a howl split the night, low, drawn out, mournful. It was answered by another, and another. I pressed my back against the wall, trembling as the sound grew, layers of wild voices rising into an eerie, primal chorus beneath the glowing blood moon. And in that moment, I understood something bone deep, a truth I could no longer deny. Silver Cross wasn't safe anymore, and neither was I. The night had fallen heavy and thick, smothering the forest in an unnatural silence. The air was damp, clinging to my skin, and the weight of everything I'd learned pressed on me like a stone. I walked slowly along the narrow trail leading back to the cabin, my thoughts tangled in the chaos of the last few days. Everything about Elias, the stranger, the rescuer, the predator, screamed danger. And yet, something inside me, something I couldn't name or silence, kept pulling me closer to him. Every time I thought about the way his hand had brushed mine when he'd helped me up earlier, heat flushed through me like wildfire. It wasn't just attraction, it was something deeper, raw, and terrifying. I reached the clearing, the cabin glowing faintly beneath the cold spill of moonlight. But I wasn't alone. Elias stood there, leaning against a tree, arms folded, watching me with unreadable eyes that glimmered like molten silver under the night sky. "Following me again?" I asked, trying for sarcasm, though my voice betrayed a tremor. His lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, not quite a threat. "Making sure you don't get yourself killed, because of the thing in the woods?" I hesitated, searching his face. "Or because you don't trust me?" His jaw tightened, and for a moment, he didn't answer. Then he stepped forward, slow and deliberate, the shadows wrapping around him like they belonged to him. "It isn't safe here for you," he said finally, voice low and sharp. "I warned you before, and I'll warn you again. Whatever you think you understand about this place, you don't. There are rules, boundaries you shouldn't cross." Something inside me bristled. "Then explain it to me. Stop speaking in riddles, Elias." His eyes locked on mine, holding me there, stealing the air from my lungs. "I can't, not yet." I took a step closer despite myself, my voice rising. "You owe me an explanation. You drag me out of the woods, you keep showing up everywhere I go, and then you expect me to just, what? Pretend none of this is happening?" For a moment, he didn't move, didn't breathe. Then his expression shifted, just barely, a flicker of conflict shadowing his features. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," he murmured. "Try me." Silence stretched between us, taut and dangerous, until finally he turned away, running. A hand through his hair in frustration. Before he could respond, a low, guttural sound rippled through the night, the kind of growl that wasn't entirely human. I froze. Elias's head snapped toward the trees, his body going rigid. Every line of him sharpened, muscles coiled tight beneath his shirt. He didn't speak, but the look he gave me said everything. "Stay behind me." Branches cracked somewhere deep in the forest. Another growl, closer this time. My heart thundered against my ribs. "What is that?" I whispered. Elias stepped forward, every motion predatory and precise. "Not a what," he said softly, almost like he was talking to himself. "A who?" Before I could process what that meant, a massive shadow exploded from the tree line, tearing through the clearing with impossible speed. I stumbled back, tripping over a root, and Elias moved faster than humanly possible, positioning himself between me and the thing lunging toward us. Under the pale spill of moonlight, I saw it clearly. It was a wolf, if you could even call it that. Twice the size of anything natural, fur dark and ragged, eyes glowing in unnatural, violent gold. Saliva dripped from its bared teeth, and its growls reverberated like thunder through the ground. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The beast lunged, and Elias met it head on. He didn't flinch, he didn't hesitate, and for the first time, I saw him change. It wasn't a full transformation, but his body shifted, muscles swelling, movements unnaturally fluid, his fingers curving like claws catching the light. His eyes burned like molten silver as he slammed into the creature, the two of them crashing into the earth with a sound that cracked through the night. I scrambled back, pressing myself against the cabin wall, watching in stunned terror as Elias fought like something other than human. The clash was brutal, growls, snarls, bones crunching. Blood slicked the grass beneath them. The other creature was strong, but Elias was faster, sharper, lethal in his precision. When it was over, the beast lay unmoving on the ground, chest heaving shallowly before going still. Elias rose slowly, chest bare where his shirt had torn, his skin streaked with blood that wasn't all his own. His breathing was ragged, harsh, but his gaze, his unearthly, burning gaze, locked on me. I should have run. Instead, I stood frozen, staring back, my breath catching in my throat. "Now you know," he said hoarsely, voice deep and frayed, almost like a growl itself. I swallowed hard, heart hammering so violently I thought I might faint. You're not human?" he finished for me, taking one slow step toward me. "No, I'm not." The night swallowed us both in silence, but my world was no longer the same, and deep down, despite everything, the danger, the blood, the impossible truth, one thought burned brighter than fear. I was already his. The forest was too quiet, too still. The silence pressed in on me like a living thing, coiled and heavy, wrapping around my ribs until every breath felt stolen. The body of the beast Elias had killed lay sprawled across the clearing, its fur matted with blood and its glowing eyes now dark and lifeless. But Elias wasn't looking at me. He stood over the creature, chest rising and falling in ragged bursts, his silver gaze fixed on the shadows beyond the trees as if waiting, expecting something worse. "Elias," I whispered, my voice barely holding together. "What the hell was that?" He didn't answer. Not at first. He just kept scanning the woods, muscles coiled tight beneath the torn remnants of his shirt. Then finally, his jaw flexed. "That," he said lowly, "was a hunter." I blinked at him, heart still hammering. "A hunter? That was not human." "No," he said, turning to face me at last, his gaze sharp and unrelenting. "But it was sent by one." The meaning behind his words sank in slowly, like ice creeping through my veins. "Sent. Someone had sent that thing. Someone knew I was here. You need to leave, Elias said suddenly, stepping toward me, his movements fast, purposeful. Pack your things. Tonight? What? I shook my head, refusing to process the weight of his command. You can't just drop that on me and expect me to walk away like none of you exists. His eyes flashed dangerously, a glimmer of silver slicing through the shadows. This isn't a choice, Ava. If you stay, they'll come for you. And next time, I might not get there in time to stop them. My throat went dry. My hands trembled, though I clenched them into fists to hide it. Then tell me what's going on, I said, my voice cracking under the weight of desperation. Stop shutting me out, Elias. Stop acting like I'm a child who needs protecting and start telling me the damn truth. For a long, suffocating moment, he just stared at me, then he looked away. The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy, until finally, he spoke, his voice lower than before, hoarse, almost broken. My father started a war, he said quietly, as though confessing something he'd buried for years. A long time ago, a war between packs, and between people who were never supposed to know about us. That thing tonight, it was part of what's left of them. The ones who still hunt my kind. The ones who won't stop until I'm dead. I froze. There it was, the truth, sharp and jagged, slicing through the fragile threads holding my world together. You mean, there are more? He laughed bitterly, but there was no warmth in it. There are always more. I didn't realize I'd taken a step closer until I felt the heat radiating off his skin. My voice dropped to a whisper. And me? Why are they after me? He hesitated, and in that pause, something dangerous shifted in his expression, something raw, conflicted, almost painful. They're not, he said finally, his words clipped. They're after me. You're just in the way. The words stung, sharper than I expected. I hated the way they made my chest tighten, hated the way my throat burned as I tried to swallow them down. I turned away, hugging my arms around myself, desperate to hide the hurt he'd just caused. But before I could take a step, his hand shot out, catching my wrist not roughly, but firmly, like he was tethering me there, unwilling to let me drift away. Ava, he said, my name falling from his lips like a plea, softer than I'd ever heard him speak it. That's not what I meant. Then say what you do mean. I whispered, my voice shaking. He stared at me like I was the one thing keeping him tethered to this world. The weight of it, the heat, the gravity between us pulled at me until I couldn't breathe. I mean, he said finally, his voice deep and rough, that the moment I met you, I knew you'd change everything. And I hate myself for it. I blinked, stunned, caught between wanting to demand answers and wanting to run straight into his arms. But I didn't move, neither did he. Then, from somewhere deep in the woods, another howl cut through the night. Low, mournful, and far too close. Elias's head snapped toward the sound instantly, every muscle locking into sharp, deadly readiness. His grip on my wrist tightened, grounding me in place. They've found us, he said softly, almost to himself. My breath hitched. More hunters? No, he whispered, silver eyes flashing under the fractured light of the moon. Worse. And before I could ask him what he meant, he yanked me toward him, his other arm wrapping around my waist in one fluid, protective motion. His breath was warm against my ear when he spoke, his voice barely more than a growl. Stay close, Ava. Do not run. The wind shifted suddenly, carrying with it a scent I didn't recognize, wild, feral, electric. The forest seemed to tremble beneath the weight of something ancient, something far bigger than me, than Elias, than anything I thought I understood. And that's when I saw them, 4 figures emerging from the shadows, their movements unnervingly silent, eyes glowing faintly beneath the broken light of the blood moon. They weren't hunters. They weren't human. They were wolves bigger than the one Elias had killed, faster, leaner, their sleek coats glinting like shadows made flesh. Elias shifted subtly, stepping in front of me without hesitation, his entire body poised like a blade ready to strike. One of the wolves let out a sound that wasn't quite a growl, wasn't quite a snarl. It was something older, a sound that vibrated through my bones and made my skin prickle. Elias tensed, his claws extending slightly at his sides. Alpha's pack, he muttered under his breath. I didn't understand, not yet, but I understood one thing perfectly. Whatever was coming next, blood would be spilled. The forest was alive with motion, though the darkness tried to claim it. Shadows moved like restless spirits, the branches bending unnaturally, as though bowing to some invisible command. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, to hide, to disappear into the trees. But I couldn't, not with Elias standing in front of me, a living shield between myself and the danger stalking closer. He looked every bit the predator he was, every muscle tense beneath his torn shirt, every line of his body coiled like a spring ready to snap. His eyes burned silver in the moonlight, a light that seemed to carve the night into shapes I could barely comprehend. "They're here," he murmured, voice low and rough. "The rogue hunters. And they're wolves. They've been tracking me for weeks, waiting for a moment to strike. And tonight, you were the bait." I swallowed hard, the chill running down my spine, not from the cold, but from the gravity of his words. "Bait?" I whispered. "Me, yes," he said, voice almost a growl. "They knew I'd be close. And they knew you would be in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's how they planned to get me." A low, guttural sound came from the underbrush. 4 figures emerged from the shadows, larger than any natural wolf I'd ever seen. Muscles rippled beneath their sleek black fur, eyes glowing gold with a feral intelligence that made my knees weak. Each moved with a terrifying precision, as if guided by a single mind. Elias shifted subtly, claws extending just slightly, body coiled to strike. His presence alone seemed to bend the shadows around him, and I felt a strange pull toward him, a tether I couldn't resist even as fear threatened to consume me. "They're moonbound," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Tethered to the lunar cycle. Stronger than they should be, faster than any mortal should be." The wolves lunged at him as one, their snarls shredding the night. Elias met them head on, moving with a speed I couldn't follow, claws slicing through the air with lethal precision. He was a blur of motion, silver, teeth, and muscle, and yet, despite the violence, he was careful. Every strike was calculated to protect me. I pressed myself against a tree, watching in awe and terror. The forest smelled of blood and pine, metallic and earthy, a heady mix that made my stomach churn. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything, but my legs refused to obey. Then I felt it, a brush of heat and energy at the edge of my mind. Elias. The tether between us pulsed, a strange, unbreakable link that made my chest ache. Every strike he made against the wolves seemed to reverberate inside me. I felt his fear, his anger, his desperation, and inexplicably something deeper, something that made my blood run hot despite the terror around me. One wolf lunged from behind, teeth bared, jaws snapping dangerously close to my shoulder. I froze. The world slowed, every heartbeat thudding like a drum. Then Elias was there, grabbing my arm with a grip that was firm but protective, yanking me back just in time. "Stay down," he barked, eyes flashing silver. I nodded, swallowing hard, as he spun to meet the threat, claws tearing through flesh and fur with precise fury. The wolves were relentless, their coordination terrifying, but Elias's movements were even more deadly. He moved like liquid steel, every strike a dance of survival and domination. And yet, despite his power, I saw the strain in him. Every motion demanded effort, every breath came with a hiss of pain. The wolves were strong, and there were too many of them. One of them, the largest, a wolf with fur like midnight and eyes like molten gold, broke through Elias's defenses for a heartbeat. It lunged at him, teeth snapping inches from his face. He countered, spinning with an almost inhuman grace, slamming the wolf to the ground with a bone-jarring impact. Blood and fur flew through the night air. My stomach turned, but my eyes couldn't leave him. Every motion, every sound, every flash of silver and muscle seared itself into my memory. I realized, with a dangerous clarity, that I had never seen anything so terrifyingly beautiful. Elias's voice cut through the chaos, low and commanding. "Ava." I blinked, heart pounding. "Yes?" "Focus on me. Stay with me." Something inside me obeyed. Against every instinct to run, I rooted myself in place, letting the tether between us anchor me even as the battle raged around us. The wolves attacked again, faster now, coordinating with a precision that spoke of centuries of instinct and training. But Elias didn't falter. He moved through them like a force of nature, teeth, claws, and silver eyes striking fear into creatures that had no right to be afraid. For a moment, time stretched. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the moonlight shimmering on his silver hair as he fought like a demon from legend. And I, standing at the edge of the clearing, realized that I didn't just feel fear, I felt something else. Something that ran deeper than logic, deeper than instinct, desire, connection, the pull between Us was magnetic, undeniable, and terrifying in its intensity. My chest tightened, my stomach knotted, and I could feel my wolf stirring, the hidden part of me responding to the unearthly power radiating from him. Then, suddenly, the battle ended. The remaining wolves fled into the forest, leaving behind the smell of blood and the echo of growls. Elias stood in the clearing, chest heaving, silver eyes burning brighter than the moon. He looked at me, every muscle coiled, every nerve taut. I stepped forward, unable to resist, despite the fear. Elias, his gaze softened just slightly, and for the first time, he smiled, not the cold, guarded smile from before, but something more human, more vulnerable. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly, almost a whisper. I couldn't leave, I admitted, heart racing, voice trembling. Not after seeing you like that, not after everything. He took a step closer, closing the distance between us. His presence was overwhelming, impossible to resist. And yet, you're still alive. But this isn't over, Ava. Not by a long shot. I nodded, chest tight, knowing that he was right. Whatever had just happened in the forest was only the beginning. The rogue hunters were still out there, and the pack war was far from over. And somehow, amidst the fear and chaos, I realized that I didn't care, because despite everything, the danger, the monsters, the impossible circumstances, I knew one thing. I was drawn to him. I was bound to him, and nothing in this world would change that. The night was thick with fog, clinging to the trees and curling around the clearing like fingers reaching for something lost. The forest, once familiar, now felt alien, each shadow moving with intent, each rustle hinting at unseen eyes. Yet, for all the danger, I felt an irresistible pull forward, toward the figure waiting for me beyond the silver light of the blood moon. Elias stood at the edge of the clearing, his posture tense but protective, every muscle coiled beneath the faint glow of moonlight. His amber silver eyes met mine, and in them, I saw a storm, a torrent of desire, danger, and unspoken grief. You shouldn't have followed me, he said, voice low, rasping with warning and something deeper, something unspoken. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my trembling hands. I can't stay away. I can't. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with truth. He moved closer, each step deliberate, the forest quieting as though holding its breath. I could feel it, the tether between us, subtle but undeniable, like an invisible thread pulling tight with every heartbeat. My wolf stirred deep inside, awakened, whispering truths I hadn't yet dared acknowledge. He stopped just a few feet away, the air between us electric. You don't know what you're stepping into, he murmured. Not fully. This world, it isn't safe for you. And neither am I. I shook my head, courage and fear warring within me. I don't care. I've already seen too much, felt too much. I want to understand. I want to know why you're here, why this connection exists. Elias's eyes darkened, and for a moment, he looked less like the fierce alpha who had protected me and more like a man carrying the weight of centuries. It's not just about protection, he said. It's about destiny. The moment I saw you, Ava, everything changed. My pack, my bloodline, the things I thought I could control, they all shifted. You were never supposed to be involved in this, but fate doesn't care about rules. Fate doesn't ask permission. I took a hesitant step closer, drawn to him despite the danger that radiated from his very being. Then, what does that make me? He inhaled sharply as though the words themselves were a burden. It makes you my mate, my fated mate, and that changes everything. The words struck me like a physical blow. My pulse quickened, my stomach twisting with disbelief and exhilaration. Mate, fated. The concept was alien, terrifying, yet a part of me, the part that had always longed for something beyond ordinary, throbbed with recognition. You mean, we're bonded? I asked, barely above a whisper, my voice trembling. Yes, he admitted, eyes never leaving mine. Bound by something older than packs, older than bloodlines, something that cannot be broken. But Ava, this bond comes with danger. It comes with responsibility, and it comes with enemies who would kill to sever it. I swallowed, heart hammering against my ribs. I don't care about the danger. I care about you. For a fleeting moment, the walls around him cracked. His expression softened, the tension in his jaw easing just slightly. Then he exhaled, slow and measured, as if drawing in the courage to speak truths he had hidden for far too long. I've tried to protect you by keeping distance, he said, voice rough with emotion. I thought, if I stayed silent, if I kept you away, you'd be safe. But fate doesn't let me do that. And now, every moment you spend near me, every heartbeat you give me, binds you closer. And I can't stand the thought of losing you. The words, raw and unguarded, hit me in the chest like a tidal wave. I stepped closer, brushing my hand against his. The warmth of his skin, the strength of his presence, made my pulse race. Then don't hide anymore, I whispered. I want to know everything. The pack, the hunters, the curse. I want it all. I want to face it with you. He paused, looking down at our hands, then back into my eyes. For the first time, the alpha's walls seemed to crumble entirely, leaving only the man beneath, the one who had saved me, who had fought for me, who had touched my soul in ways I couldn't yet fully comprehend. You're ready, he murmured, almost to himself. But are you ready for me? I am, I said, with every ounce of conviction I could muster. I'm ready for us. The moon above bathed us in silver light, a witness to the fragile, fierce trust forming between us. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a sliver of peace, not safety, not certainty, but connection. Elias stepped closer, pressing his forehead against mine. His hands cupped my face, thumbs brushing along my cheekbones. The intensity in his eyes was almost unbearable, a mixture of desire, protectiveness, and vulnerability. Then we face it together, he whispered. No matter what comes, Ava, you and I, we're bound, and nothing will break that bond. I leaned into him, closing the distance fully, feeling the heat of his body, the pulse of his heartbeat mingling with my own. The world around us, the hunters, the rogue wolves, the shadows in the forest faded into the background. There was only him, only the tether that bound us, only the fierce, unrelenting truth of our bond. And in that moment, under the blood moon, everything changed. I was no longer just a human caught in a hidden war. I was something more, something bound to the alpha who had become my protector, my enemy, and my inevitable fate. And for the first time, I welcomed it. The forest had quieted, but the tension in the air was electric, a current running between every shadow and every breath. The blood moon hung high, silver and unforgiving, casting pale light through the trees, illuminating the glint of dew on the underbrush. The curve of Elias's jaw, the steadying weight of his presence beside me. We walked side by side, silent. At first, the kind of silence that spoke louder than words. Every instinct told me to stay alert. The rogue wolves were out there, hidden in the darkness, waiting for an opening, but none of it mattered. Not entirely, because with every step, the pull between us tightened, magnetic and undeniable. I can't stop thinking about you, I admitted finally, voice barely above a whisper. My hands, previously clenched against the straps of my pack, shook slightly as I spoke. Even when I'm terrified, even when I'm trying to hide, even when I should run. Elias's silver eyes locked onto mine, and the corners of his mouth lifted into a half smile, half grimace, full of all the emotions he rarely let surface. He stopped walking, so close that our shoulders brushed. You think I haven't felt the same? His voice was rough, raw, full of danger and longing all at once. Every time I see you, every time I protect you, it's like the world shrinks to nothing but this us. And I hate myself for wanting it, but I can't stop. My chest tightened. Then, tell me everything, the truth, no more secrets. He hesitated, as if weighing the risk of vulnerability against the dangers still lurking in the shadows. Then slowly, deliberately, he reached for my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver racing through me, igniting something both terrifying and irresistible. I was born into this, he said quietly, voice low and almost reverent. Bound by blood, bound by duty, bound by things I can't escape. My father, he started a war long before I was ready. My pack, my life, everything has been a battleground. And then I met you. He swallowed hard. You were never supposed to be part of this, Ava, but from the moment I saw you in those woods, something in me shifted. I didn't choose it. I couldn't choose it. And now you're mine, in ways that go beyond understanding. I felt my heart ache, a mixture of fear, longing, and something that demanded surrender. Yours? I whispered. You mean, fated? Yes. His gaze was so intense I thought it could burn through my soul. Bound by the blood moon, bound by something older than any pack, older than the war itself. You're mine, and I am yours. Nothing, no hunter, No rogue wolf, no curse can change that. You have to believe me. I nodded slowly, the words settling in my chest, in my blood, in the marrow of my bones. I believed him. Then, as if the universe itself had paused to witness the revelation, he stepped closer, closing the distance between us completely. His hand brushed my cheek, warm and firm, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw. My breath hitched, and I leaned into the touch, compelled by a desire I had tried so hard to deny. I don't care about the dangers anymore, I confessed, voice trembling with honesty. I don't care about the hunters. I don't care about the rogue wolves. I care about you. About us. Elias's lips curved into a soft, almost reluctant smile. Then, without another word, he leaned down, and our mouths met in a kiss that was fierce, desperate, and infinitely tender all at once. It was the culmination of everything: the fear, the longing, the danger, the bond that had been forming since the moment our fates collided. The world around us, the moonlight, the forest, the shadows faded until there was nothing but the heat of our bodies, the racing of our hearts, and the undeniable certainty that we belonged together. When we finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine, and he whispered, "I'll protect you. Always, no matter what comes. You and we're bound, and nothing will break that." "I know," I whispered back, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming weight of truth and surrender. "And I trust you, completely." The moon hung over us like a silent witness as the bond between us solidified, palpable and unbreakable. For the first time, I felt what it meant to truly belong, not just to a man, but to a fate intertwined with his, a destiny that neither of us could escape. But even as our hearts and bodies aligned, under the silver light, the forest murmured with distant threats. The hunters hadn't vanished, and the rogue wolves still prowled somewhere in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Yet for the first time, I didn't feel afraid, because I was not alone, and I knew, with a certainty that burned through every nerve and sinew, that together we could face whatever darkness was coming. Under the blood moon, in the quiet heartbeat of the forest, love was no longer a whisper. It was revealed, raw and unyielding, and it would not be denied. The first light of dawn filtered through the dense canopy of the forest, painting everything in shades of silver and gold. Mist curled along the forest floor, drifting like restless spirits through the underbrush. Each breath I took was damp with moisture, each sound a snapping twig. The rustle of leaves was magnified in the thick stillness of the morning. Elias and I stood at the edge of the clearing, tense and silent, our eyes scanning the forest as though the shadows themselves might attack. I could feel the pull of his presence like a gravitational force, an invisible thread keeping me anchored despite the fear threatening to overwhelm me. My hands shook slightly, and I pressed them to my chest, trying to steady my racing heartbeat. "There. Close," Elias murmured, his voice low and steady, though every word carried the weight of warning. "The rogue pack. They're hunting me, and by extension you." I swallowed, my stomach twisting with anxiety and adrenaline. "How close?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Close enough to strike," he replied, silver eyes scanning the misty shadows. "They've been tracking my scent, waiting for a moment when I'm distracted. Tonight, Ava, you were that moment." I felt a shiver of panic, realizing how much danger I had been in. And yet, despite the fear, there was a part of me, terrifying, magnetic, that wanted to be near him, to stand with him, to face this with him. "Then we fight," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. "We don't run. We face it." Elias's gaze softened, just slightly, as he reached for my hand. His touch was electrifying, grounding me even as my fear surged. "Stay close," he warned, "and do exactly as I say. One misstep, and you could be dead." The rogue wolves emerged from the shadows as if summoned by the blood moon itself. 4 massive forms, their eyes molten gold, muscles coiled with lethal intent. The alpha led them, a towering wolf with black fur and a presence so commanding it seemed to bend the light around it. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath as they approached, each step calculated, precise, a perfect blend of instinct and malice. Elias shifted, every muscle taut, claws extending slightly as the energy radiating from him thickened, bending the shadows closer to his will. The tether between us pulsed, a tangible, almost violent reminder of the bond that connected us. My pulse raced as if echoing his own, every beat synchronizing with the rhythm of his presence. "Remember your training," Elias murmured, his eyes locking on mine for a heartbeat. "Focus on me. Stay anchored. Trust in the bond. I nodded, though my entire body was trembling. The forest seemed alive with anticipation. The rogue wolves lunged as one, a coordinated strike honed over centuries. Elias met them head-on, moving like a predator himself, fluid and lethal. I watched in awe and horror as claws met claws, teeth clashed, and the earth shook beneath their fury. Time seemed to stretch unnaturally. I could see every movement, every calculated strike, every snap of teeth. The alpha wolf lunged at Elias with terrifying speed, jaws snapping dangerously close to his face. He pivoted, spinning like liquid silver, muscles rippling under his skin as he redirected the force of the attack, slamming the creature to the ground. The impact sent a shiver through the forest, leaves trembling on the trees as if the world itself recognized the power in the clearing. A low growl reverberated from deep within the alpha's chest, a sound both primal and intelligent. Elias met it with his own guttural growl, and for a moment, the forest seemed suspended in a fragile balance between life and death. I pressed myself against a tree, unable to look away. Fear gnawed at my chest, yet I felt something else rising, a dangerous thrill, a heat that pulls through my blood, tethered to the force of Elias's energy. My wolf stirred within me, responding to the raw power radiating from him. One of the smaller wolves broke through the chaos, lunging toward me with teeth bared, heart hammering. I froze, unable to move, until Elias spun with unnatural speed, intercepting it. His claws caught the creature mid-leap, sending it tumbling to the forest floor with a yelp. He pivoted, silver eyes burning, directing his power at the alpha, whose strength was formidable but no match for the bond-driven fury Elias wielded. The battle raged, a chaotic symphony of growls, snapping teeth, and clashing claws. Branches splintered, leaves were torn from trees, and the smell of blood filled the air, metallic and heady. My chest ached with tension, yet I couldn't tear my eyes away. Every movement, every roar, every clash of bodies underscored the truth of our connection. Elias was fighting not just for his life, but for our bond, for the right to claim me as his mate, and for the survival of everything we had fought to protect. Finally, with a decisive, explosive strike, Elias brought the alpha wolf to its knees. The rogue pack scattered, growls fading into the distance as they retreated. The forest seemed to exhale, the mist curling like smoke settling after a fire. Elias stood tall, chest heaving, silver eyes glowing with residual power. The threat finally contained, I stepped closer, drawn irresistibly to him, my hands brushing against his chest. He turned, gaze softening, muscles relaxing as the tension drained from him slightly. "You passed," he murmured, voice low and hoarse. "We both passed." I blinked, confusion and relief mixing with awe. "We?" I asked, heart still racing. Elias's lips curved into a faint, exhausted smile. "Together, always together." The bond between us pulls stronger than ever, a living, breathing force beneath the waning blood moon. I realized that surviving the trial wasn't just about skill or strength, it was about trust, about the unbreakable connection that bound us in ways far deeper than mere fate. I stepped closer, letting my forehead rest against his. "I trust you," I whispered, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. "Completely." He closed his eyes for a moment, letting out a long, shaky breath. "And I'll protect you," he murmured, "always, no matter what comes. You and we're bound, and nothing can sever that." The sun's first rays began breaking through the canopy, scattering golden light across the clearing. The shadows receded, the forest waking from the night's terror. In that quiet aftermath, I felt a profound sense of clarity and certainty. We had survived the trial, not just the battle with the rogue pack, but the ultimate test of our bond, our trust, and our destiny. And as we walked hand in hand from the clearing, the rising sun spilling warmth over the forest, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: no force, no curse, no enemy could ever undo what had been forged under the blood moon. Our trial was over, but our journey together was only beginning. The forest had softened under the light of the rising sun, the shadows of the night retreating slowly, almost reluctantly. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, and the distant trill of birdsong seemed almost foreign after the violence and tension of the past hours. Elias and I walked side by side, the tether between us humming softly, a quiet reminder of our bond. I could feel it pulsing in my chest, a rhythm that synchronized with his every step, The path led us toward the heart of the pack's territory, a clearing larger than the one we had fought in, surrounded by ancient oaks and whispering pines. Here, the members of Elias's pack had gathered, their eyes a mixture of curiosity, caution, and something I couldn't yet read. The rogue wolves were gone, the threat dissolved into the forest, but their presence had left a scar, and the pack's silence carried both respect and wariness. Elias's grip on my hand tightened subtly. "Stay close," he murmured, and I followed instinctively, my pulse still thrumming with the remnants of adrenaline. As we stepped into the clearing, every head turned toward us. The wolves, both in their human and shifter forms, watched intently. Whispers ran through the pack like ripples across a pond, a mix of awe and uncertainty. I felt exposed, as if every eye could see not only my human form but the faint pulse of my wolf beneath my skin. Elias moved to the center, posture commanding, yet protective. He raised his voice, deep and resonant, carrying across the clearing. "They tested me tonight," he said, eyes briefly meeting mine, grounding me in place, "and we passed, together." A hush fell over the pack. I could feel the tension in the air, the silent judgment, the struggle between skepticism and acknowledgement. Then, one by one, the members of his pack began stepping forward, some in human form, others shifting partially into wolf, all of them bowing their heads slightly. A gesture of acceptance and respect. "Your bond is undeniable," said a tall wolf with silver hair and golden eyes, his gaze piercing yet not unkind. "She is your mate. That cannot be ignored." I felt my throat tighten, the words sinking deep into me. The pack's acceptance was no small thing. It meant survival, stability, and a place in a world I had only just begun to understand. It meant that I was no longer an outsider, no longer a target. I belonged. Elias's expression softened as he turned toward me. "They will protect you now," he said quietly, "just for me, and I'll protect you forever." I nodded, letting the warmth of his words, his presence, and the bond we shared wash over me. My wolf stirred, instinctively sensing the pack's acknowledgement, its tentative approval. It was not just my human mind that recognized this moment, it was my soul, my blood, the very essence of who I had become. The pack leader, a massive wolf in human form, stepped forward. His voice was calm but commanding. "Ava," he said, his eyes sweeping over me, "you have faced danger, fear, and uncertainty with courage. You have endured trials alongside our alpha, and in doing so, you have proven yourself. You are one of us now, bound not just by blood moon but by choice. You belong." I felt tears sting my eyes, an emotional release I hadn't allowed myself until now. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice trembling but sincere. I will do my best to honor this bond, to honor him, and the pack." Elias stepped closer, his hand brushing mine, a subtle, grounding touch that tethered me even as my emotions threatened to overwhelm me. "You don't have to honor anything," he said softly, silver eyes shining with warmth. "You already do, by being here, by trusting me, by staying." The pack began to circulate around us, some offering gestures of respect, others nodding subtly, a quiet acknowledgement of our union and the power of the bond we shared. It was not a celebration, it was recognition, and it carried a weight far deeper than any party or ceremony could provide. I looked at Elias, and in that moment, the world felt both enormous and intimate. We had faced rogue hunters, rogue wolves, and centuries of bloodline conflict. We had fought for survival, for trust, for love. And now, as the pack embraced me silently, I realized the journey was no longer just about danger, it was about belonging, about connection, and about creating a life that was ours, together. Elias leaned down, resting his forehead against mine. "We've come far," he murmured, voice rough with emotion, "and we've only just begun." I smiled, allowing the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future to settle into a calm certainty. "Then let's face it all," I whispered. Back, together. The sun rose higher, casting golden light across the clearing, illuminating the pack, the forest, and the path ahead. I was no longer the human caught between worlds. I was a mate, a member of the pack, bound by love, fate, and the unbreakable thread that connected me to Elias. And as we walked hand in hand toward the deeper forest, toward the unknown challenges that surely awaited, I felt a quiet, unwavering hope. We had survived trials, faced enemies, and embraced a bond that could not be broken. And now, at last, I had found a home not just in the pack, not just with Elias, but in the heart of a world I had once feared. We had survived. Together, the forest was quiet now, touched only by the gentle whisper of the wind through the pines and the occasional chirp of a waking bird. The battle, the danger, and the trials of the past nights felt like echoes in the mist, fading into the soft light of a rising sun. The blood moon had long since dipped below the horizon, leaving silver traces on the dew-kissed leaves and the soft carpet of moss. Elias and I walked side by side along a narrow path that led deeper into the woods, our hands entwined, fingers locked so tightly it was as if letting go was impossible. Every step felt like a promise, silent, unspoken, but profound in its depth. The tether between us pulls steadily, warm and persistent, a quiet rhythm that mirrored the beating of our hearts. You feel it too, don't you? Elias murmured, his voice soft, almost reverent, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile peace of the morning. His silver eyes met mine, luminous in the early light, and in them I saw the full weight of everything we had endured: fear, survival, and the powerful, unshakable bond we now shared. I nodded, leaning slightly into him. Every moment, every heartbeat, I feel it in my bones, in my soul. It's like we've always been connected, waiting for each other. He exhaled, a long, steady breath, and a smile tugged at the corners of his mouth, gentle but tinged with the vulnerability he rarely allowed anyone to see. I never believed I could feel something like this. Something so real, so undeniable, and yet here you are, and it's everything I didn't even know I was missing. The forest opened into a small glade, bathed in the soft gold of dawn. Light filtered through the leaves, casting patterns on the forest floor like liquid fire. I paused, taking in the serenity, the quiet that felt almost sacred after the chaos of the last few nights. Elias followed my gaze and rested a hand on my shoulder. This is ours, he said quietly, a place where we can breathe, where we can be together without fear. For now, the world out there, he gestured vaguely toward the deeper woods, it's still dangerous. But here, with each other, we've found something worth holding onto. I leaned my head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath my ear. I never thought I'd find peace again, I admitted softly. Not after everything I've been through, but with you, it feels possible. He tightened his hold on me, and for a moment, the world shrank to nothing but the warmth of his body, the strength of his presence, and the certainty of our bond. Peace, he murmured, is something we earn, something we protect, and we'll protect it together, no matter what comes. The glade was alive with life, small birds flitting between branches, the distant sound of a stream laughing over rocks, but beneath it all was a stillness, a profound quiet that seemed to acknowledge our triumphs and survival. I closed my eyes, letting the sun's warmth wash over me, letting the bond between Elias and me settle like a living, breathing thing. You're mine, he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from my face. And I'm yours. That doesn't just survive the battles, it survives the world. I smiled, the tension in my chest finally easing. And we'll face everything together, I whispered, pressing a hand to his chest, feeling the strength and steadiness beneath the surface. Together, he lowered his lips to mine in a kiss that was gentle, lingering, filled with promises that stretched beyond words. Not the desperate, urgent kiss of danger and need, but the quiet, deliberate affirmation of trust, love, and shared destiny. When we pulled apart, our foreheads rested together, breaths mingling, and the forest around us seemed to exhale. I realized that we had not only survived trials and enemies, we had discovered something more profound, a bond that transcended fear, a love that defied logic, and a connection that would guide us through any darkness. Elias's hand brushed over mine, squeezing gently. We have a future, he said, voice steady, full of certainty. Not just in the pack, not just in this forest, but anywhere we choose to go. And I'll never let anything take that from us. I nodded, feeling a deep, resonant joy settle into me. Anywhere, I echoed. Together anywhere. The morning sun rose higher, casting golden light across the glade, illuminating our path forward. The trials of the past, the hunters, the rogue wolves, the fear and uncertainty had faded into memories, reminders of what we had endured and overcome. And now, at last, we could move forward into a life of our own making, bound not just by fate, but by choice, love, and unwavering trust. As we walked hand in hand toward the horizon, the forest alive with possibility, I realized that the danger we had faced had not weakened us, it had forged us. stronger, closer, and more united than ever before. And beneath the vast, endless sky, with the glimmer of moonlight fading in the dawn, I knew one absolute truth. No matter what the world threw at us, no matter the battles or the darkness to come, we would face it together. The forest whispered around us, the light grew brighter, and for the first time, I felt completely unapologetically home. We had survived, we had loved, and we had found each other, and that was enough.